6 months had passed since the Vex invaded Earth. The small group of survivors led by June had been moving through the mountains for 3 weeks. They lost 5 people during their escape from the mine. Now they were down to 42, including June, Sujin, Tai, Hana, and Min. They traveled at night and hid during the day. Vex patrols used heat sensors that worked better in daylight. The journey was hard. Food was scarce. Everyone was tired and afraid. How much farther to this temple? Tay asked Min as they rested in a cave. Outside rain fell in heavy sheets, hiding their heat signatures. 2 more days if we keep this pace, Min replied. The old man was surprisingly strong despite his age. It's high up near the peak of Mount Jiri. June studied the group. They were a mix of civilians and military personnel who had survived by luck and determination. Some, like Hana, had useful skills. Others were simply people who refused to die. Do you really believe in this Boog? Sujin asked Min quietly. She had been working on her bacteria weapon whenever they stopped, but progress was slow without proper equipment. Min looked at her with calm eyes. I believe in many things science cannot explain. My family has kept the ritual for 20 generations. We have only used it twice before. And it worked? Sujin raised an eyebrow. Korea still exists, doesn't it? Min smiled. That night, June took first watch. He sat at the cave entrance looking at the valley below. In the distance, he could see the glow of a Vex facility. They were everywhere now, building structures, extracting resources, processing humans. Tay joined him, offering a small piece of dried meat. You need to eat. June took it without speaking. The 2 men sat in silence for a while. I'm not sure about this temple plan, Tay finally said. It feels like we're running toward a dead end. What would you suggest? June asked without anger. He valued Tay's opinion. The man had survived on his own longer than most. We should hit them where it hurts. Find their weakness. Sujin's bacteria could work if we can get enough of it. And how do we deliver it? We can barely get close to 1 Vex soldier without being killed, let alone infect their entire force. Tay had no answer for that. The next day they continued their journey. The rain had stopped, making travel easier but more dangerous. They stuck to forests and ravines where the Vex ships would have trouble spotting them. Hana walked beside June, carrying a backpack full of modified weapons parts. I've been thinking about Min's ritual, she said. What about it? June asked. He said it needs 5 people with survival instinct and righteous fury. What if he means us? You, me, Sujin, Tay, and himself? June considered this. Why us? We've all lost everything but kept going. And we all have different strengths. You lead, Sujin knows science, Tay fights, I build things, and Min has knowledge. It made a strange kind of sense. June had stopped believing in coincidence months ago. Too many impossible things had happened. That evening, a Vex patrol spotted them. 3 insect-like soldiers appeared on the ridge above their path, their forearms holding weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Run, June shouted. The group scattered into the trees. Tay pulled out one of Hana's modified rifles and fired. The bullet hit a Vex soldier in its joint where the armor was weaker. The creature screeched a high piercing sound and fell. The other 2 fired back. Trees vaporized around them. A man named Park was hit and simply disappeared, leaving only ash. Sujin grabbed Hana and pulled her down behind a rock. June and Tay fired from different positions, trying to confuse the Vex. Min was nowhere to be seen. One of the Vex soldiers jumped. They could leap incredible distances and landed near Sujin and Hana. It raised its weapon. Then something strange happened. The ground under the Vex soldier collapsed, sending it tumbling into a hidden pit. Sharp stakes pierced its body. It thrashed and died. Min appeared from behind a tree. Old hunting trap, he explained. I said it while you were all arguing yesterday. The last Vex soldier retreated, likely to report their location. We need to move faster, June said. They'll send ships now. They traveled through the night, pushing their tired bodies to the limit. By dawn, they could see Mount Jiri in the distance. Its peak was shrouded in mist. The temple is there, Min pointed, near the top. It's hidden from below. Will we make it before they find us? Sujin asked. We have to, June replied. They rested briefly, eating the last of their food. Hana worked on her weapons, making adjustments. Tay scouted ahead, returning with news that the path was clear for now. The Vex are searching the wrong area, he reported. They think we went east. That won't last long, June said. Let's move. As they approached the mountain, Min became more animated. He walked faster, his eyes bright with purpose. The temple has stood for over 1,000 years, he told them. It was built on a place of power. The monks who lived there knew secrets about the world beyond our understanding. Were they scientists? Sujin asked. In their way, yes. They studied the stars and the earth. They knew about visitors from other worlds long before the Vex came. This caught Jun's attention. There were other aliens before the Vex? Min nodded. Many times throughout history. Some came in peace. Others, like the Vex, came to take. And Boog stopped them? Hana asked, now fully invested in Min's story. Boog is the last defense. When nothing else works, when invaders threaten all life, Boog restores balance. They climbed higher. The air grew thinner. Behind them, in the valley, they saw Vex ships moving in search patterns. It was only a matter of time before they were found. Near sunset, they reached a plateau halfway up the mountain. And there it was, the temple. It was smaller than June had expected, made of stone with a curved roof. Ancient carvings covered its walls. It's still intact, Min said with relief. Boog protected it. The group approached cautiously. The temple door was made of heavy wood bound with iron. Min pushed it open with surprising ease. Inside was a single room with a stone altar in the center. The floor had a circular pattern carved into it. The walls were covered with paintings of stars and strange creatures. What now? Tay asked, looking around skeptically. Min walked to the altar. Now we prepare. The ritual must be performed at midnight when the stars align. Which stars? Sujin asked. Min pointed to a painting on the ceiling. A pattern of stars with 5 bright ones forming a pentagon. Those stars are visible tonight, he said. I've been tracking them. That's why we had to come now. June ordered the remaining survivors to set up a perimeter around the temple. They had 36 people left, armed with whatever weapons they had managed to keep. Inside, Min explained the ritual to June, Sujin, Tay, and Hana. Each of you must stand at a point of the pentagon, he said, showing them positions around the altar. I will stand here at the top point. You must each give blood willingly and speak the words I teach you. Blood. Hana looked nervous. Just a small cut, Min assured her. The blood connects us to Boog. Shows our desperation and commitment. For the next few hours, Min taught them the words, an ancient language none of them recognized. They practiced until they could say the strange syllables correctly. Outside, the sun set. Stars appeared in the sky. The 5 bright stars Min had pointed to were clearly visible above the temple. They're coming, a lookout reported. Vex ships, at least 3 of them. June looked at the others. We have no choice now. We do the ritual or we die here. At 10 minutes to midnight, they took their positions around the altar. Min had drawn the pentagon on the floor with chalk. He handed each of them a small knife. When I give the signal, make a cut on your palm and press it to the altar. Then speak the words. The temple shook as something exploded outside. The Vex had found them. They're attacking the eastern side. Someone shouted, "Hold them off!" June called back. Just for a few more minutes. The sounds of fighting grew louder. Energy weapons fired. People screamed. Min looked up at the skylight in the temple roof. The 5 stars were directly overhead. Now, he said. June cut his palm, feeling the sharp pain. He pressed his bleeding hand to the cold stone of the altar and spoke the words Min had taught him. Beside him, the others did the same. The temple shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. Outside, a Vex ship hovered directly above them, its red beams cutting through the night. It's not working, Tay said as they finished speaking the words. Min looked confused. I don't understand. We did everything correctly. The temple door burst open. 2 Vex soldiers entered, their weapons raised. Run! June shouted. They scattered, diving behind pillars as energy beams cut through the air. The ritual had failed. Their last hope was gone. All they could do now was fight and die. Tay fired at the Vex soldiers, his modified rifle hitting one in the eye. The creature fell, but the other kept coming. June pulled Sujin behind a pillar as energy beams cut through the air. The back door, Min shouted, pointing to a small opening behind the altar. This way. Hana was already running, carrying a bag of her weapons. The others followed, ducking and weaving through the temple as more Vex poured in from the main entrance. The back door led to a narrow tunnel cut into the mountain. They ran through darkness, guided only by Min's small flashlight. Behind them, the sounds of fighting faded. Most of their group would not make it. I don't understand, Min kept saying. The ritual should have worked. We did everything right. Save your breath for running, Tay snapped. The tunnel sloped upward, taking them higher into the mountain. After what felt like hours, they reached another door. Min pushed it open, and they emerged onto a small ledge near the peak. Below them, they could see the temple burning. Vex ships circled it like vultures. Bodies lay scattered on the ground, the remains of their group who had stayed to fight. "We should be dead too," June said quietly. "Why did they let us escape?" "They didn't," Sujin said. "Look." A Vex ship was rising toward their position, its red scanning beam sweeping the mountainside. "Move." Tay pushed them toward a path that wound around the peak. They ran again, their legs burning, lungs struggling in the thin air. The path led to a small cave. They ducked inside just as the ship's beams passed over the spot where they had been standing. "They'll find us eventually," Hana said, trying to catch her breath. "There's nowhere left to run." Min sat down heavily on a rock. He looked defeated. "I failed you. The ritual didn't work." "You tried," June said, putting a hand on the old man's shoulder. "We all did." Sujin was examining the cave walls. "This place has markings too," she said, pointing to faint carvings similar to those in the temple. Min looked up. "This is the true sacred place," he whispered in awe. The temple below was just the approach. "This is where Boog is actually summoned." Tay laughed bitterly. "So we did the ritual in the wrong place?" "Great." "No," Min said, standing up with renewed energy. "The ritual begins below, but must be completed here. That's why it didn't work. We need to finish it." June looked out of the cave entrance. The Vex ship was still searching, moving methodically across the mountainside. "How long will that take?" "Not long," Min said, examining the cave. "The altar here is smaller. We just need to repeat the final words while touching it." In the center of the cave was a small stone pedestal with the same pentagon pattern carved into it. "Our blood is already given," Min explained. "Now we just need the words in the sacred place." They gathered around the pedestal. Their hands, still stained with their own blood, reached out to touch the stone. Min began to speak the words again, and they joined in. The strange syllables echoed in the small cave. Outside, the Vex ship drew closer. As they finished speaking, the ground trembled slightly. "Dust fell from the cave ceiling, is that it?" Hana asked. Min looked puzzled. Something should happen. A sign. The trembling stopped. Nothing changed. "We need to move," Tay said, checking his weapon. "That ship is almost on us." With heavy hearts, they left the cave, continuing along the path that circled the peak. There was nowhere left to go but higher. The path ended at a small plateau near the very top of the mountain. They stood exposed under the night sky, the 5 stars still visible above them. "This is it," June said, looking down at the valley below. Vex ships were everywhere now. The temple was a smoking ruin. No more running. The ship that had been following them appeared around the mountain. It hovered 50 meters away, its weapon systems glowing. "At least we tried," Sujin said, taking June's hand. "I'm sorry," Min whispered. "I truly believed." The ship's weapons powered up. They closed their eyes, waiting for the end. But then something strange happened. The air around them seemed to thicken. The stars above began to shimmer, especially the 5 that formed the pentagon. "Look," Hana pointed upward. The sky between the stars was tearing. There was no other word for it. A dark seam appeared, as if reality itself was being pulled apart. The Vex ship fired, but the beam stopped midair just meters from the group. It hung there, frozen in place, then dissolved into sparks. The tear in the sky widened. Through it came something that their eyes couldn't properly process. A mass of shifting colors and shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than they could perceive. "Boog," Min whispered, falling to his knees. The entity, Boog, expanded as it emerged, filling the sky above the mountain. The Vex ship fired again, all its weapons at once. The beams were absorbed into Boog's mass without effect. A tendril of the entity reached out and wrapped around the ship. There was no sound as the vessel was crushed, its metal hull folding like paper. Then it was simply gone, absorbed into Boog's form. "It worked," June said in disbelief. It actually worked. They watched as Boog continued to grow, spreading across the sky. More tendrils reached down toward the valley, toward the Vex facilities and ships. "What is it?" Sujin asked, her scientific mind trying to understand what she was seeing. "Balance," Min replied. "Boog is the universe's immune system. When a species becomes too predatory, too destructive, Boog appears to restore equilibrium." They made their way carefully down the mountain, watching as Boog systematically destroyed the Vex presence below. Ships were crushed, Ground troops were lifted into the air and simply disappeared. Facilities collapsed. The Vex fought back with all their advanced weapons, but nothing affected Boog. The entity continued its work with methodical precision. By dawn, there were no Vex left in the valley. Boog had moved on, spreading across the horizon in all directions. "It's hunting them," Tay said with satisfaction. "All of them." They found shelter in a small village that had been abandoned when the invasion began. Houses stood empty, possessions left behind in the rush to escape. They found food and water and rested. Reports began to come in over emergency radio frequencies. All around the world, the same story. A massive entity was destroying the Vex. Humanity was cautiously emerging from hiding, watching in awe as their invaders were systematically eliminated. "We did this," Hana said, looking at her hands. The cut on her palm had healed, leaving a strange mark in the shape of a small pentagon. The others found they had the same mark. "We're connected to it somehow," Sujin observed. The blood ritual did more than just summon Boog. June felt it, a presence in his mind. Not words exactly, but impressions, images. He could sense what Boog was doing, where it was going. "I can feel it hunting," he told the others. "It's tracking the Vex to their ships, their bases, everywhere they're hiding." The others nodded. They felt it too. "Can it be controlled?" Tay asked Min. The old man shook his head. "Boog is not a weapon to be pointed. It has one purpose: to eliminate species that threaten the balance of life. Once that task is complete, it will return to its own realm." For 3 days they stayed in the village, recovering their strength. The presence in their minds grew stronger. They began to understand more about Boog. "It's ancient," Sujin said one evening as they sat around a fire. "Older than humanity, older than Earth itself." "I see other worlds," Hana added. "Places where Boog was summoned before. Some didn't survive." This was troubling news. Min looked concerned. "The legends say that once Boog completes its task, it leaves. But the price can be high." "What price?" June asked. "The summoners are changed, marked. And sometimes Boog's hunger doesn't stop with the invaders." This was worrying, but there was no way to unsummon the entity now. They could only wait and hope. On the 4th day, they felt a shift in Boog's attention. It had found the main Vex fleet in orbit around Earth. "It's going after their mothership," June said, closing his eyes to better see the images in his mind. Through their connection, they watched as Boog rose into space, expanding even larger in the vacuum. The Vex ships fired everything they had, weapons that could destroy cities in a single shot. Boog absorbed it all. One by one, the massive alien ships were crushed, their technology and crews becoming part of Boog's ever-growing mass. The mothership tried to flee, to jump to whatever system the Vex had come from, but Boog prevented it, wrapping tendrils around its engines, holding it in place. "It's the last one," Tay said, his eyes also closed. "When that ship is gone, Earth will be free." They felt Boog's satisfaction as it consumed the final vessel. The Vex were gone, eliminated from Earth completely. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of returning to its realm, Boog began to descend back toward Earth. "What's it doing?" Hana asked, fear in her voice. "The Vex are gone." Min looked troubled. Sometimes in the legends, Boog's hunger isn't satisfied with just the invaders. "It's coming here," June realized. "To us." Through their mental connection, they could sense Boog's intentions. It had eliminated the immediate threat, but now it was evaluating humanity, judging whether they too might someday become like the Vex, predatory, destructive, a threat to the cosmic balance. "We need to communicate with it," Sujin said urgently. "Show it that humans aren't like the Vex in a how." Tay asked. June had an idea. "Through our connection. The blood ritual linked us to Boog. Maybe we can use that link to show it our thoughts, our intentions." They sat in a circle, holding hands, the pentagon marks on their palms touching. The morning sky over Seoul turned red without warning. June stood on the roof of the military intelligence building, his coffee cup slipping from his fingers. 5 massive ships, each the size of a small mountain, broke through the clouds. They were black with glowing red lines across their hulls that pulsed like blood through veins. "Sir, we need to get inside," his assistant said, pulling at his sleeve. But June couldn't move. The ships stopped above the city, hanging there like dark stars. Then the killing started. Beams of light shot down from the ships, cutting through buildings like they were made of paper. People ran screaming in the streets below. Cars crashed. The military base alarm blared in June's ears. "All personnel report to emergency stations," the speakers announced. This is not a drill. June finally moved. He ran down the stairs, his mind racing. In the command center, screens showed the same scene playing out in cities around the world. New York, London, Beijing, Mumbai. Everywhere the same black ships, the same red beams, the same destruction. What are our defense options? General Kim asked, his face pale. Fighter jets are scrambling, sir, an officer replied. Missile systems online. June watched as Korean fighter planes approached one of the ships. They fired missiles that exploded harmlessly against some kind of shield. The ship responded with a pulse that turned 3 jets to dust in seconds. We need to evacuate civilians, June said. Our weapons aren't working. The next few hours were chaos. The alien ships, for they could only be alien, continued their attack without pause. Seoul's tallest buildings fell. The death count rose by the minute. By nightfall, half the city was gone. The military command center moved underground. Reports came in that the aliens had landed troops, tall, insect-like creatures with 4 arms and weapons that dissolved human flesh on contact. They're collecting bodies, reported a soldier who had escaped an attack. The ones they don't kill right away, they're taking to their ships. June felt sick. This wasn't just an attack. It was a harvest. 3 days later, Soo-jin arrived at the bunker. She was a xenobiologist who had been working in a remote lab when the invasion began. The military had brought her in to study an alien body they had managed to recover. Their biology is unlike anything on Earth, she told June as they looked at the dead alien. Its skin was hard like a beetle's shell, but it had an internal structure more like a spider. They evolved on a world very different from ours. Can they be killed? June asked. Soo-jin nodded. This one was crushed when a building collapsed on it. Their outer shell is strong but can break under enough pressure. They breathe something similar to oxygen but can go without it for almost an hour. Their vision is advanced. They can see heat signatures and probably other spectrums we can't. What do they want? June asked the question everyone was thinking. Soo-jin had no answer. A week after the invasion began, human military forces worldwide attempted a coordinated attack. It failed completely. The aliens, now called the Vex after a word found repeated in their communications, had technology far beyond Earth's. Nuclear weapons couldn't penetrate their shields. Their ground troops moved faster than humans and had armor that repelled bullets. June was in the war room when the last reports came in. North America had fallen. Europe was overrun. Africa was being systematically swept clean of human life. Asia would be next. We need to go deeper underground, General Kim said. Gather survivors, preserve what we can of humanity. June argued against it. We can't just hide. We need to find a way to fight back. With what? The general asked, his voice breaking. Look at the casualty reports. We've lost 3 billion people in 2 weeks. 3 billion! Soo-jin had been quietly working in her makeshift lab during this time. She approached June that night with an unusual discovery. The Vex who died, it had a bacterial infection, she said. It was from Earth. Something in our environment affected it. Can we use that? June asked, feeling hope for the first time. Maybe, but we need time to develop it into something that works quickly, and we need to deliver it somehow. Time was something they didn't have. Seoul fell completely 2 days later. The bunker was evacuated as Vex troops closed in. June, Soo-jin, and a handful of military personnel escaped into the countryside. For the next months, they moved from place to place, always hiding, always running. They gathered survivors when they could. The Vex controlled the cities now, using them as processing centers for the humans they captured. June learned from intercepted communications that the Vex were systematically stripping Earth of its resources, including its people. Human bodies were being taken apart, studied, stored. No one knew why. They're treating us like specimens, Soo-jin said after examining footage they had stolen from a Vex facility. Like we're just another resource to catalog. Humanity's numbers dwindled. The resistance, if it could be called that, consisted of small groups hiding in remote areas. Communication between groups was rare and dangerous. The Vex had technology that could detect electronic signals. Soo-jin continued her research whenever possible. She determined that certain bacteria found in soil could make the Vex sick. But turning this into a weapon was difficult without proper equipment. By the 6-month mark after the invasion, June's group had established a more permanent base in an abandoned mine. They had 47 survivors, including a teenager named Hana, who had a gift for engineering. She had figured out how to modify human weapons to be more effective against Vex armor. If we can get close enough, we can hurt them, she explained, showing June a rifle she had modified. The problem is getting close without them seeing us. Tay joined their group around this time. He had been special forces before the invasion and had survived on his own, killing Vex whenever he could. He was driven by revenge. His family had been taken in the first wave. They're expanding their operations, Tay told them after scouting a nearby Vex facility. Building something big. They're bringing in more ships. The news was grim. The Vex weren't leaving. They were settling in for a long occupation. One night, as they sat around a small fire deep in the mine where the Vex couldn't detect them, an elderly man named Min spoke up. He had been quiet since joining their group 2 weeks earlier. There is a way to fight them, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. A way our ancestors knew. June and the others looked at him skeptically. False hope was dangerous. My family has kept the knowledge for generations, Min continued.
We are the keepers of the ritual to summon Boog. Boog?
Sujin asked. What is that? Not what, Min corrected. Boog is the devourer of conquerors, the balancer. When invaders threaten everything, Boog can be called upon to restore balance. June would have dismissed it as an old man's fantasy, but their situation was desperate, and something about Min's quiet certainty made him pause. Tell us more, he said. Min explained that throughout history, when Korea faced impossible odds against invaders, there were stories of a force being summoned to help. The records were fragmented, kept secret, passed down through certain families. His grandfather had taught him the ritual. It requires 5 people, Min said. 5 with pure survival instinct and righteous fury. It requires sacrifice and specific words spoken at the right time. This sounds like superstition, Tay said dismissively. What else do we have? Hana asked. The Vex are winning. In another 6 months, humans might be extinct. Sujin was more pragmatic. Even if it's just a story, the ritual might have symbolic value. It could unite people, give them hope. June thought about it all night. In the morning, their decision was made for them. The Vex had detected their hideout. They had to run again. As they packed what little they had, June pulled Min aside. If we find a safe place, we'll try your ritual. We have nothing to lose, Min nodded solemnly. We must go to a special place. A temple in the mountains. It still stands. I checked when the invasion began. How do you know? June asked. Min smiled sadly. Because Boog protected it. That's where he was last summoned 300 years ago. As they fled the mine, Vex ships appeared overhead. Red beams cut through the trees around them. June looked up at the alien vessels and felt a surge of hatred so strong it nearly choked him. We're going to the temple, he told the others as they ran. We're going to try everything. Sujin's bacteria, Hana's weapons, and Min's ritual. Whatever it takes. The Vex troops followed close behind as the survivors headed toward the mountains, toward what might be humanity's last hope. 5 years passed since Boog had been summoned and the Vex destroyed. Earth had changed. Cities rose again, but differently than before. They were greener, more connected to the natural world. Technology had advanced, incorporating elements from Vex designs, but with human creativity and compassion guiding its use. June stood on the balcony of the Seoul Council Tower, looking out over the rebuilt city. At his side was Sujin, her green crystal hanging from a chain around her neck just as his blue one did. Another ship detected near Saturn, she said, reviewing the data on her tablet. That makes 7 this month. The same type as before? June asked. She nodded. Tay is coordinating the response. The defense network is tracking them. After the first alien ships had retreated 3 years ago, more had come. Different designs, different species, but all seemingly drawn to the solar system. Some came to investigate what had happened to the Vex, others to scavenge the remains of Vex technology. A few seemed simply curious. Most left when they detected the crystal energy that marked Earth as under Boog's protection, but not all. 3 times ships had approached aggressively. 3 times the 5 crystal holders had combined their powers to drive them away. The Order training is progressing well, Sujin continued, changing topics. The new candidates show promise. The Order of the Pentagon now had over 100 members worldwide. Young people chosen for their intelligence, compassion, and dedication to balance. They were trained to understand Boog, to help guide humanity on its new path and, eventually, to take over when the original 5 could no longer serve. Min is worried about succession, June said. The crystals are bonded to us. We don't know if they can be passed on when we die. Despite their slowed aging, they were still mortal. Min, being the oldest, thought about this problem the most. We'll find a way, Sujin assured him. Boog wouldn't have left us these tools without a way to continue their use. A soft chime sounded from Jun's pocket. He pulled out a communication device Hana had designed. Emergency meeting, he read. Hana has found something. They made their way to the secure chamber at the heart of the tower. Tay and Min were already there. Hana arrived moments later, her yellow crystal glowing brightly. I was analyzing the deep space readings, she said without preamble, looking at patterns in the visitor ships over the past 3 years. I found this. She projected an image in the center of the room, a map of nearby star systems with lines showing the paths of various alien vessels. The lines converged from multiple directions toward one point, Earth. They're not just coming randomly, Hana explained. They're being drawn here. Something is calling them. The Vex remains? Tay suggested. Their technology? Hana shook her head. I thought that too at first. But look at this. The projection changed, showing an energy pattern emanating from Earth itself, 5 distinct signals, pulsing outward into space. It's us, Sujin realized. The crystals. They're broadcasting our position. Not exactly broadcasting, Min corrected, studying the pattern. More like marking, creating a signature that certain species can detect. Why would Boog do that? Tay asked, frustrated. Why make us a target? Jun closed his eyes, focusing on his connection to his crystal, and threw it to Boog. Images formed in his mind. Planets, stars, species he couldn't name. Movement through the galaxy. Patterns of migration. It's not making us a target, he said slowly. It's making us a nexus, a gathering point. The others looked at him questioningly. Remember what Min told us about the temple? It was built on a place of power, a place where different worlds connect. Min nodded. The monks who built it spoke of cosmic crossroads where the fabric between worlds was thin. I think Boog is using the crystals to create such a crossroad here, Jun continued. Deliberately drawing certain species to Earth. Why? Tay demanded. We've barely recovered from the Vex. We don't need more alien visitors. Sujin's eyes widened as she connected the pieces. The cosmic balance. Boog doesn't just eliminate predatory species. It guides, connects, builds networks. Exactly, Jun said. It's not just a destroyer. It's a shaper. And it's using us, humanity and Earth, as part of its plan. This was a troubling revelation. They had thought of Boog as Earth's protector, but its goals were clearly more complex. We need more information, Min said. We need to understand what Boog intends. They placed their crystals in the pentagon formation they used for their strongest connections. As the stones rose and spun in the air, their minds expanded, reaching out through the crystal link to touch Boog's consciousness. Distant but still connected. What they saw terrified them. The galaxy was in turmoil. Hundreds of species were on the move, fleeing their home systems. Behind them came darkness, not ships or weapons, but something more fundamental. Space itself was changing, becoming hostile to life. What is that? Hana whispered, her mind reeling from the images. Through the link came understanding. An ancient force was awakening at the galaxy's core, something that fed on stars, that consumed the energy of life itself. It had been dormant for millions of years, but now it was stirring, spreading outward. This is what the Vex were really running from, Min realized, not just their dying star. They sensed this coming. More images flooded their minds. Boog fighting this darkness in the past, containing it but never defeating it completely. Other entities like Boog, created by the same ancient precursor civilization, each guarding different regions of space. Boog is gathering species here, Sujin said, creating an alliance to fight this darkness. And we're supposed to be part of that? Tay asked incredulously. We can barely defend our own planet. Jun saw more in the vision. Humans playing a crucial role not because of their technology or strength, but because of their adaptability, their creativity, their ability to bring different perspectives together. That's why Boog gave us the crystals, he said. Not just to protect Earth, but to prepare us for this larger role. The connection faded as their strength wavered. The crystals settled back into their hands, still glowing, but dimmer now. We need to tell the council, Hana said. We need to prepare. No, Jun decided after a moment's thought. Not yet. Humanity is still healing from the Vex. If we tell them there's an even greater threat coming, one that even Boog fears. Panic. Tay agreed reluctantly. Chaos. We prepare in secret, Min suggested. Use the order. Begin training, building defenses, establishing communication with the friendly visitors. They agreed on this approach. Over the next months, they accelerated the order's training. Hana designed new technologies based on what they had learned from the crystal vision. Sujin studied the biology of the alien visitors who were willing to be examined, looking for commonalities, strengths that could be shared. Tay established a security force drawn from order members, training them to use crystal energy for defense. Min delved into ancient texts from around the world, finding references to previous visits by Boog-like entities, previous alliances against the darkness. June coordinated it all, using his crystal's enhancement of his leadership abilities to keep the growing operation secret while still effective. 1 year later, the first formal alliance was established. 3 alien species that had come to Earth agreed to stay, to help prepare to share their knowledge and technology. They had all encountered Boog before, had all been judged and found worthy of protection. The myth were gaseous beings who lived in special containment suits when visiting Earth. They could perceive energy fields, invisible to humans, and could manipulate electromagnetic forces with great precision. The Volnar resembled giant otters, with 6 limbs, and communicated through color changes in their fur. They had an intuitive understanding of spacetime that made them excellent navigators and engineers. The Arev were crystalline life forms that lived for thousands of years and stored vast amounts of information in their molecular structure. They served as historians and strategists, their long view of time giving them perspective on cosmic events. These 3 species, along with humans, formed the core of what would become known as the Boog Alliance. More would join in the years to come, drawn by the crystal signal, evaluated and either welcomed or turned away depending on their nature. 10 years after Boog's summoning, the Alliance had established outposts throughout the solar system. Ships of various designs patrolled the outer planets, watching for signs of the approaching darkness. Earth itself had become a hub of interspecies cooperation, with designated areas for different biological needs. The 5 crystal holders had barely aged in those 10 years. Their connection to Boog sustained them, though they knew it wouldn't last forever. They had begun the process of identifying potential successors, humans who might be able to bond with the crystals when the time came. Hana had selected Yuri, a young woman with an extraordinary gift for visualization and design. Tay was training Jin, a former soldier who combined physical prowess with compassion. Sujin worked closely with Yoon, a brilliant xenobiologist. Min had chosen Sang, a historian and philosopher with a deep understanding of balance. June was still searching for the right person to eventually take his place. On the 10th anniversary of Boog's summoning, they gathered at the rebuilt temple on Mount Jiri. The structure was now a sacred site for the Order and a meeting place for Alliance representatives. For 3 days, Boog remained suspended above Earth, a swirling mass of colors and shapes that filled half the sky. People around the world watched in fear and wonder, not knowing if they had been saved from one threat only to face another. June, Sujin, Tay, Hana, and Min stayed in their circle, maintaining their mental connection with the entity. It was exhausting. They barely ate or slept, their minds filled with images and sensations from Boog. "It's learning about us," Sujin said during a brief break when they drank water and ate what little food they had. "Scanning our history, our civilizations. Is that good or bad?" Tay asked. No one had an answer. Through their connection, they learned more about Boog as well. It was created millions of years ago by an advanced species that had foreseen the danger of predatory civilizations spreading through the galaxy. They had engineered Boog as a failsafe, a cosmic immune response that would activate when aggressive species threatened the balance of life. "Boog has been summoned 17 times before," Min said. His eyes closed as he processed the information flowing into his mind. "In different parts of the galaxy, different worlds. What happened to those worlds?" Hana asked. "Some survived, others didn't." This was not comforting news. On the 4th day, they felt a change in Boog's attention. It had made a decision. The entity began to shrink, drawing in its mass until it was merely the size of a mountain rather than filling the sky. "What's happening?" June asked, both aloud and through the mental link. Images flooded his mind. The Vex, but not just the ones that had attacked Earth. He saw their homeworld, a harsh planet orbiting a red dwarf star. He saw millions of Vex ships, billions of the insect-like creatures. He saw them consuming world after world, stripping each one of resources before moving on. "They're refugees," Sujin said in surprise, seeing the same images. "Their home star is dying. They've been searching for a new world? That doesn't excuse what they did here," Tay argued. "No," June agreed, "but it explains it." More images came. The Vex finding Earth, seeing its abundant resources, its position in a stable solar system. They had seen it as perfect for their needs. The fact that it was already inhabited was irrelevant to them. Humans were just another resource to be harvested, studied, perhaps even integrated into their biology in some way. "They didn't see us as equal life forms," Hana said, disgust in her voice, "just as useful material." Boog's judgment was clear. The Vex had violated the balance. Their desperation to survive did not justify their methods. They had become the kind of predatory species Boog was created to eliminate. But what about humans? The 5 summoners felt Boog's attention turn to Earth's history. It observed warfare, environmental destruction, extinction of species. But it also saw cooperation, compassion, efforts to preserve and protect. It saw potential. "It's giving us a chance," Min said. "A warning, but also a chance." Boog continued to shrink, now only the size of a small hill hovering above their village. Its colors shifted from the violent swirls of before to a calmer, more regular pattern. Then it began to change shape, forming 5 distinct parts that separated from the main mass. These parts descended slowly toward the 5 summoners. Instinctively, they held out their hands, the pentagon marks on their palms glowing. Into each hand fell a crystal-like object small enough to hold but pulsing with energy. Each was a different color: blue for June, green for Sujin, red for Tae, yellow for Hana, and purple for Min. As they touched the crystals, knowledge flooded their minds. These were fragments of Boog itself, condensed and stabilized. Through them, Boog would maintain a connection to Earth. It would watch. It would wait. And if needed, it could be summoned again. The remaining mass of Boog rose into the sky, growing smaller until it was just a point of light among the stars. Then it was gone, returning to whatever dimension it called home. The 5 looked at each other, then at the crystals in their hands. "What do we do with these?" Hana asked. Sujin examined her green crystal. "They're like anchors, keeping a small part of Boog here with us." "They're also tools," June realized, feeling the knowledge in his mind. "They can help us rebuild." Over the next few days, they discovered what the crystals could do. Each had different properties, reflecting the personality and skills of its holder. June's blue crystal enhanced leadership and strategy. When he held it, he could see patterns and possibilities more clearly. He could inspire others, bring them together. Sujin's green crystal amplified her scientific abilities. It showed her the molecular structure of things, helped her understand complex systems. She used it to develop medicines to study and repair damaged ecosystems. Tae's red crystal boosted physical abilities, strength, speed, endurance. It helped him clear rubble, build shelters, protect others from the dangers that still existed in a post-invasion world. Hana's yellow crystal enhanced creativity and invention. It showed her how things could fit together, how to repurpose Vex technology that had been left behind. She began designing new systems for power, communication, transportation. Min's purple crystal connected to knowledge and wisdom. It helped him recover lost information, understand ancient texts, preserve the history and culture that the Vex had tried to erase. Together, they left the mountain village and began traveling across the devastated landscape of Korea. Wherever they went, they helped survivors rebuild. They organized communities, established communication networks, shared resources and knowledge. The crystals changed them physically as well. Their aging slowed, injuries healed faster. They could go longer without food or sleep. They weren't immortal, but they were more than they had been before. News spread of the 5 guardians who had summoned Boog and saved humanity. People sought them out for help, for guidance, for hope. As they worked, they maintained their mental connection to each other and distantly to Boog itself. Occasionally, they received flashes of information, Boog hunting other predatory species in distant parts of the galaxy, maintaining the cosmic balance. 6 months after Boog's departure, they held a meeting in Seoul, which was slowly being rebuilt. Representatives from around the world gathered to discuss humanity's future. We've been given a second chance, June told the assembly, but also a responsibility. Boog is watching us through these crystals. It judged the Vex as a threat to the balance of life. It could judge us the same way if we return to our old patterns. Are you saying this Boog thing is threatening us? Asked a representative from what remained of the European Union. No, Sujin explained. It's warning us. The universe has rules. Predatory species that consume without thought for the consequences don't survive. The Vex learned that lesson too late. We need to be better than we were, Min added. More balanced. More careful with the world we've been allowed to keep. There was resistance, of course. Some humans wanted to use the leftover Vex technology to build weapons to prepare for the next invasion. Others wanted to try to replicate the crystals to harness Boog's power for themselves. That would be a grave mistake, Tay warned them. Boog isn't a weapon to be controlled. It's a force of nature. It responded to our desperation, our need. If we try to use it for conquest or power, it will turn on us. Most listened. The horror of the Vex invasion was still fresh. No one wanted to risk another such catastrophe. A new global council was formed, with the 5 crystal holders as advisors. Their extended lifespans were seen as an advantage. They could provide continuity, perspective, as humanity rebuilt. June sometimes wondered if this had been Boog's plan all along. Not just to eliminate the Vex, but to change humanity's path, to force them to cooperate, to think more carefully about their place in the universe. 1 year after Boog's summoning, the 5 gathered at the mountain temple, which had been rebuilt. They stood in a circle holding their crystals. I can feel it out there, Hana said. Still hunting. Still watching? Do you think it will ever come back? Tay asked. That depends on us, Min replied. On the choices humanity makes. We should form an order, Sujin suggested. Train others to understand what these crystals mean, what Boog is. Preserve the knowledge for future generations, June nodded. The Order of the Pentagon. To remember the 5 stars, the 5 of us, the 5 crystals. They spent the next months establishing the order, selecting students who showed the right qualities: wisdom, compassion, determination. People who understood the importance of balance. The world continued to heal. Cities were rebuilt, but differently now, more integrated with nature, more sustainable. Vex technology was studied carefully, adapted to serve life rather than to destroy it. There were challenges. Some humans rejected the new path, wanted to return to old ways of competition and conquest. The 5 used their crystals to identify these threats early, to address them before they grew too large. 2 years after the invasion, a new threat emerged. Monitoring stations that Hana had designed detected unusual activity at the edge of the solar system. Something's coming, she told the others. Something big. They gathered in their chamber in the new Seoul Council building. Placing their crystals in a pentagon pattern, they combined their abilities to see farther, to understand what was approaching. It's not the Vex, June said, relief in his voice. No, Sujin agreed, but it's not friendly either. Through their enhanced perception, they saw massive ships entering the outer solar system,